Okay. Okay, we got a little something here. That's a little something to be excited about for all my tribal friends out there, all my tribal tribes. We got Realmwalker, one of the newest cards spoiled from Kaldheim. Everyone, this is Nikachu Merfolk Master, and Realmwalker is a very exciting card because it's got the conspicuous snoop ability where you get to see the top card of your library and basically cast the creature spells from it. But the thing is about Realmwalker, unlike conspicuous snoop, this is a shapeshifter, a changeling, which means this card is every creature type, and you can put this in any tribal deck that's using green. So Realmwalker, as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, name what you want. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. 1 green, 2 generic, relatively easing on the casting cost. 2/3 creature, which is a very good body to have, especially in Modern, where we're living in a world of Lava Dart, Walking Ballista, Plague Engineer. Even Stomp is a pretty serious card in the Modern metagame. A lot of many different decks utilizing Stomp between Red Green Ponza, between Abosh Prowess. So having 3 toughness on the creature, it actually hits around quite a bit of removal in the format. So here's the deal. I actually think this is a pretty interesting card, but has some downsides. You have to build your deck for Realmwalker big time. So let's analyze it a little bit. I actually have the benefit of playing goblins recently, and I got a little bit of a taste of Conspicuous Snoop. Conspicuous Snoop, red, also very similar ability. You may cast goblin spells from the top of your library, and you play with the top card of your library revealed. So very similar to Realmwalker, but here's the deal. When I made my goblin deck, I can safely say that Conspicuous Snoop was actually one of the worst cards in it, and I'll tell you why. I did not build my deck for Conspicuous Snoop. I think I had overall about 24 goblins in my version of goblins. I thought I could get away with having like Lightning Bolt and Bone Crusher Giants and just a Blood Moon and a bunch of other non-goblin cards. But the problem is, as you fill your deck with non-goblin cards, this is just a Grizzly Bear. It's just a Grizzly Bear. You play it for 2 mana. It's a 2/2 creature. You see a land on top of your library. Okay, this is useless. You see Lightning Bolt on top of your library. All right, this is useless. This was nothing like the card advantage machine that I thought it was going to be. So I've come to the conclusion that if you want to make Conspicuous Snoop work in a goblin deck, you got to have millions of goblins. That's why this first place finishing goblins list in the Modern Championship had 32 goblins in the deck, plus a Tarfire, which also could be played off the top of the library. So 32 goblins. Now that is a Conspicuous Snoop goblin deck. Now with what with that in mind, we go back to Realmwalker. What decks can utilize this creature that has so many creatures? Because I was thinking about Merfolk, and I'm like, I don't know how well we can use this. I mean, in Merfolk, I'm running Force of Negation. I'm running some copies of Spreading Seas. I got my Chalice of the Void, sometimes Dismembers. Then we got my Brazen Borrower band, you know, my band of Brazen Borrowers. Then I got Smuggler's Copters, smuggling away some victories. But none of these are Merfolk. They're not Merfolk. I can't play them off the top of my library with Realmwalker. It's not going to work. It's going to be too much of a non-bow. And what's going to end up happening is I'm going to pay 3 mana for a 2/3 creature that just sometimes gets something off the top of my library. But you can't do that in Modern. You need instant value. There's enough things that already enter the battlefield and get stuff. They draw cards, gain life, get 4 extra mana. We can't like live off of the hope that we're gonna maybe get something off the top of our library 1/3 of the time. You know what I mean? So the Goblins deck was Conspicuous Snoop. All the winning Goblin decks, they're loaded with Goblins. They're gonna get value out of their Conspicuous Snoop. Not to mention, they also have some fetch lands. So fetch lands can definitely increase the chances of making this better. Shuffling away garbage off the top and hopefully revealing one of your creature types on the top with Realmwalker. So I actually think that we need to be looking, the decks that are really going to utilize this card effectively are the ones that are super heavy on the creature type. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe elves. And elves actually would be really good with this because as they keep peeling more elves off the top of their deck, they can tap them for mana with Heritage Druid and continue the chain going until they find a land on the top of their library. So maybe elves can make really good use out of this because they're always looking for the bomb card anyway. Or they have just like a million creatures in play and do nothing with them. They can grind all those elves off the top of their library into more gas. And I was thinking maybe humans could use it. They're actually a pretty heavy creature-based deck. They got 19 lands, 4 Vile, and then a million humans, with the exception of Phantasmal Image. And some decks play with 4, some decks play with 1 or none. So depending on the build, they have like 30 or more humans that they can peel off the top of their deck constantly. If there's a land on top, use a Horizon land to get rid of it, draw it, and keep digging into the gas. Now, the only other thing I could say about Realmwalker, and there might be more tribal decks that could utilize Realmwalker. For example, this is a Shapeshifter, so I think all tribal players should be very excited for Realmwalker. Maybe there are some tribes that are they've got a lot of good stuff, but they're like missing one piece to just make it like a cohesive deck. They're looking for some filler card. This could be that filler card for them. That could be what they're looking for with Realmwalker. And maybe they're going to get other pieces filled. I didn't even mention, because there's Shapeshifters in Kaldheim, that means every tribal deck should be excited to see some new piece to be added to their deck. Because if it's not Realmwalker as a Shapeshifter changeling, then maybe it's going to be some other changeling. Any one of these things can be just jammed into any tribal deck. But the point is, I think this card, by far and most, is going to be the most effective in a deck that's super heavy, dense on the creature types. Now let's talk about a downside. One big downside I find with Realmwalker. It's going for the late game, but I don't know how often Modern is concerned about the late game. Like, let's say you wanted to put this in humans. What are you taking out for this card? And if you notice, almost every single card in the humans deck, for the most part, is about getting tempo, just pushing damage, or like having some prison effect against the opponent. This card is basically saying, I've emptied my hand already and we need reinforcements. But how often does the game get there? You know, in Modern, I'm very often dying with a bunch of cards still stuck in my hand. That's a sad reality of Modern at the moment. It's pretty fast. If I'm against Amulet, like, this card isn't going to be very useful to me. If I'm up against Oopsell spells, I'll die with this card. Stuck in my hand. If I'm up against Hammer Time, they'll definitely kill me before I get this thing out. This is good for some long games, and also you ideally need to get it onto the battlefield while you're still able to cast something on top of your library. If you tap out to play this thing, and you clearly have something on top of your library, your opponent's going to kill this thing on the spot. So you really do need to stretch into the late game enough that you can play this and hopefully cast something on top of your deck at the same time to get proper value. But it doesn't tempo out the opponent. It doesn't. It doesn't interact with the board. It's not a particularly powerful creature by itself. So it is card advantage going into the late game. How many decks need that sort of effect? How many decks are willing to go that further, like that far into the late game? You know, it's something to consider when you're building your deck. I don't know if aggro decks like humans are looking for that sort of card. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they've played the Militia Bugler before. They've played Militia Bugler. That's a card advantage spell, but it's only one card, and potentially, Realmwalker can get like millions of cards. Militia Bugler is just one card. Also has to be power 2 or less. Can't get those Mantis Riders on top of your deck. Can't get it's not going to get like the really big beefy stuff, so Militia Bugler might be limited in that effect, but it's guaranteed, you know, whether you kill this Militia Bugler or not. You didn't have to sink any more mana to get this effect, whereas Realmwalker, you are going to have to sink mana into this effect. Now, I've mostly spoken on behalf of, you know, like Modern, Obviously, in Commander, this thing is going to be an all-star. If you're running green in your tribal deck, you have to slot this thing in. The games will always go long. You generally have a lot of time in order to cast the stuff from the top of your deck. Really good card advantage spell. There's nothing, you can't go wrong with this card at all. So, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. I'm curious to see how much competitive play this is gonna have. It's got to be in a deck with a lot of creatures and a lot of access to mana. So we most definitely might see some play out of this card. But what deck it's going to be, we're going to have to wait and see. Anyway, if you know where you're going to slot this in your deck, let me know in the comments section below. This has been Nikachu, Merfolk Master, analyzing Realmwalker out of Kaldheim.